There are two kinds of people in this world. Either you're doing things you know you shouldn't, or you're not doing things you know you should. Guess what? We're both. Hi, I'm MARCI Barker, life and business coach, aka your loving kick in the pants. This podcast is here to help you become accountable with aligned action and become boss-minded while growing a business without sacrificing what matters most. Let's dive in. Good morning, my beautiful people, or it may be evening by the time you're listening to this, but I'm grateful you're here for another episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. And I'm really excited about this episode because this is a follower topic, meaning somebody who listens to my podcast said, can you please make a podcast on this topic? And I'm super excited about that. And it reminded me, guys, that my podcast is still not linked on my website. That is like a massive fail. So I'm going to get that updated. But what I'm also going to do is on marcibarker.com and possibly bossminded.com. I'm going to add a link for the podcast, but I'm also going to add a form where you guys can submit your topics, because guess what? This is a really good way to get some free coaching, is just telling me what you need help with. And you guys know me, I love to talk big time. So I'm always happy to help you be your loving kick in the pants, but also give you some more strategy and clarity with what you're dealing with. Because if you guys know me, and being an accountability expert, I always want you to take action on the thing that's bothering you or taking up your mental energy, because when you address something that you actually care about, you are way more likely to take action on it. So if you ever get an idea of, man, I wish I could do better with this, or I would love more help on that topic, then head to marcibarker.com and put it in as a topic that you would like me to cover. The other thing I will do too is update my guest application. So if you want to be on the podcast, we'll make sure we're a good fit and you can be here too. So without further ado, let's get into this topic. And what it is about is being an introvert. And if you guys know me, I'm 93% extroverted. So I'm kind of the opposite. But this person said, I would love help on messaging and belly-to-belly marketing tips for the introverts that are not spammy or gross. And the other thing that she asked for was scary things to do for your business. So this podcast is going to be in two parts. The first one, we're going to talk about how to continue marketing in a smart way, even if you're not extroverted, because I promise you it's possible. And there is also something about me, which I've learned, that attracts introverts. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So that's the first part. And then the second part, scary things to do for your business. A week or so ago, one of my clients put out an A to Z guide of different things you can do in your business. And I opened it up and I thought, you know how fun it would be to just kind of pick my name, MARCI, and read the topics and just see what pops out. And so I went over her guide and I looked at my name, the acronym, and we're going to talk about those 5 points about how they can kind of seem scary for you to do in your business, but being able to apply them is really going to help you. And if I am going to do really well with this, then I will tie them all into being an introvert as well. Because guess what? All successful business owners are not extroverts. That being an extrovert is not something that you have to be successful, but you do have to recognize what your strengths are and utilize them to your advantage. So I love that this person wants tips that are not spammy or gross, because the first episode that she listened to was the one I posted a couple weeks ago that was stop cold DMing and do this instead. And she gained value from that. But I probably didn't talk a lot about being an introvert, because that really makes a difference in how you show up in the world and show up in community. So we're going to talk about those things. All right. When it comes to messaging and marketing, it is so important that you are strategic about it, because you can waste a lot of time and energy by spraying and praying. And if you haven't heard that term before, it's kind of like, let me put this out there, let me put this there, let me do this, let me add a post there, let me go make a comment there, and you just hope that somebody finds you in your business. Guess what? That's not going to work. It doesn't work. I've done it. And this year I'll hit 10 years in business, and I can just tell you that there are so many people who are like, I post and I post and I post and nothing's happening, yet they have not invested in any education on marketing. Okay. So marketing tips for introverts. Now, one of my partners in business, she was very introverted. And when she started her project, she told me, she said, I manifested you. I needed somebody who could be the face of what we're doing, and I've seen you pop up in my feed for a couple years now, and I knew that I needed an extrovert. And I was like, girl, you came to the right place, because I am an extrovert and I can put my face on this thing. And she said, let's blow this up. And I was like, done, we can do that, because I am not scared to put myself in positions where I'm going to get seen. So tip number one as an introvert is find your extroverted business bestie. Because if you have somebody that can give their courageous action, you can attach onto it and apply your own strengths in a different way. Now, my introverted partner at the time, she was really good at reminding me to not necessarily be kind, but more like pump the brakes sometimes, because as an extrovert, I have no problem talking to people. But she kind of was like, I don't want to be that way, so you can be that way, but just know that I'm not going to be that way. So as an introvert, the second thing you need to do is set boundaries. You have to recognize what do I need to do to stay comfortable. And I say that in the nicest way, because I don't think you need to be comfortable all the time. I mean comfortable as in staying in alignment with who you are. Because I know that introverts also say that they have a social battery that's very limited, and they can spend it and then they get back home and they're completely drained. I don't want that to be your case if that doesn't work for you. But if you're like, no, my boundary is like, I can go give it my all for 2 hours at this networking event and then come home and watch a movie, totally fine. Then just define those boundaries. Because if you go into a situation where you understand what you can give and what you want to get out of it, then that is success. That is success right there. Now, another thing that's really important about being introverted and still making connections is that even if I am an extrovert, some of the best connections will come in a one-to-one situation. So if you are introverted and you walk into this big room, I don't want you to feel like you have to talk to everybody, but you can make someone feel special, and you can find the right connection with one person in that room and it still be a success. So as an introvert, set that intention, set your boundary, and you say, okay, I'm going to this event. Do I want to talk to 5 people and get out of my comfort zone? Or do I want to find that one person who I feel like I vibe with and who I connect with, and I can really see how things can move forward with us? So being an introvert, I will tell you, well, let me just tell you a story real quick. Early on in my business, like the first year, I flew 8 different times to go to different conferences. And one conference I went to, it was really awesome, because the host of this event, he's just on stage talking for like 4 hours, and everybody was just writing it down. They were eating it up. It was such a good environment. And one thing that he did is he left 2 microphones open in the aisle so people could come up and ask questions. And I'm not even sure how this came about, but I just was like, well, actually I was raised being in front of a microphone quite a bit, like learning how to speak in church and stuff like that. So anytime there's an open mic as an extrovert, I'm like, I am finding a reason to take that microphone. So at this conference, I knew that if I could get time on the microphone, I could say, hey, I'm MARCI. And at the time I was doing personal training, and I say, I'm a mom in Utah, and I'm 24 and I have 4 kids. And the whole room, their jaws drop, because having 4 kids by the age of 24 is crazy. But I tell them, in Utah, that's not that crazy. It's actually really common. So how do I set myself apart? That was the question that I asked. And what was so cool about me taking the microphone was that instead of me trying to connect with 300 people, now I had people coming to connect with me, because I got the attention of the whole room. So as an extrovert, that really helped me. But as an introvert, on the other side, I want you to think about, what are some things that people have said that you can connect to? Because you don't have to be in front of the room. You don't have to get the attention of the entire room. You just have to pay attention to the things that people are saying, and it's going to be clear where you need to spend your time or who you need to introduce yourself to, and own that. Be 100% okay with going to a networking event and saying, I met one person that I'm excited about. I think that is really, really great. So with messaging and marketing tips for introverts, that's more in-person stuff. Now, let's dive into these tips on this guide that my client Laura put together, because we can apply these to the online space with being an introvert. So we're going to go through the acronym of my name, MARCI, M-A-R-C-I, and these are things that can scare you in your business And because that's what this person wanted. I absolutely love that she said that. Can you create a podcast on scary things to do for your business? She said, I'm trying to do one scary thing for my business daily, and I would love some extra ideas. So I'm going to ask my client, Laura, for permission to share her guide. It is an opt-in, so you'd have to hand over your email, but I fully support Laura, so I would love for you to do that. But this guide comes with a few other things in it too. But we're just, for the sake of this podcast, we're going to talk about the tips in volume 1. So this guide is the ultimate A to Z guide for women who mean business. So volume 1 is build your foundation like a boss. So introverted or extroverted, being boss-minded is all about taking control of what you want. And again, it's not all the extroverts who are having all the fun and getting all the success. So I don't ever want you to feel bad about being introverted, because I used to think that being extroverted equaled confidence. And guess what? It does not. It does not at all. And I learned this a really hard way. Before we dive into this acronym, I was introduced to a coach who had a quiz, and I'm not going to say the name because I know I'm going to butcher it. I haven't looked at it for a while. But in this quiz, you would line up different values, and you had to filter in what was most important to you and what was the least important to you. And these were like hard things, like, do you value life more than you value corporal punishment? Like, what's more important to you? People living even though they're not doing everything they should? Or do you believe, more importantly, that people should be punished? It's like, so you have to line up all these things. After you line up all these things, it tells you your values and it tells you different strengths. And on my report, it said that I was 96% confident. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It makes total sense, because a lot of people come to me because I have a high level of confidence and they want to develop that as well. So I told my husband, I said, this whole thing, this is so trippy. You should take this quiz. It's going to tell you all the things. And when you take the quiz, again, it submits your email. And this coach reached out to me and he said, there's another Barker that took this. Do you know an Aubrey? Who is she? And I was like, that's my husband. That's my husband's name. And he said, I've never seen anybody score this high on confidence. And I was like, what? Higher than me? Are you saying that somebody's more confident than me? I don't understand. And he said, yeah, Aubrey scored 98% confident. And I was like, what? Mind blown. Because I had a belief about my husband, thinking he was so introverted, he wasn't confident in himself, and that's why he wasn't outspoken or would approach people. And I was so wrong. I was so freaking wrong. So when it comes to strengths and being introverted, like, find your strengths and know that you can be 100% confident in what you're doing. And to tie this in too, confidence is preparation. Confidence is proof of past success. So the fact that this person is asking, what are things that will kind of scare me in business? Like, you do scary things in business, your confidence is going to skyrocket, and your strengths as an introvert are going to be magnified. It's just going to be beautiful. And I know that there's a few people in my life that they say they have social anxiety or they say they're introverted, and I'm like, I don't believe you because you talk to me all the time. And they're like, you don't understand how it works. I talk to you because I like you. I feel connected to you. So just know that being an introvert or being extroverted, like, one is not better than the other, but what is better than the other is honing in on your skills and practicing those skills to a point where you become confident and clear in what you're doing. Hey, my beautiful people. If you're loving these episodes, you'll want the full experience. I've bundled both of my books, The Accountability Code and Becoming Boss-Minded, into one powerful package. You'll get instant access to the audiobooks and ebooks so you can learn and grow anytime, anywhere. Head to bossminded.com and grab the book bundle now. It's the perfect way to stay inspired between episodes. All right, let's dive back in. All right, let's dive in. The very first tip to do something scary in your business, M, says master your subject and momentum. So become so good that people associate your name with a solution to their problem. Momentum is everything. Take action and keep going. This one, I was like, okay, this one was made for me, because I tell people all the time, like, you guys can probably guess, what's that one word that when you hear MARCI, you're like, you think this word, and probably even backwards. So just because this is a podcast, you're listening to it, just say the word out loud, what you think it is, okay? Now, if your word matches the word that I'm going to say, then I have done a good job. And if it's a similar word, I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit. But ultimately, I want people to hear the word accountability and then think of me. Okay, I wrote the book, The Accountability Code. Accountability is something that when people are like, man, I need this in my life, I want them to be like, MARCI. MARCI is the one for that. So you have to decide in your own business, what is that thing? What is that solution? What is that topic? What is that word that when people hear it, they know that it's you that has a solution. So if you are not sure how to do that, or if you're like, that kind of scares me to figure it out, ask people, okay? When I was in a mentoring program, one of my mentors, he asked me to ask the 5 closest people to me to describe me in 5 single words. And when I did that, I was like, who are the 5 people closest to me? And guess what? It was my husband and my 4 kids. And I did it. And I was surprised. I wasn't surprised. I was grateful for my daughter's level of maturity, that they could see that the way I was living my life was actually how I wanted to be perceived and how I wanted people to approach me if they needed a solution that required responsibility, accountability, honesty, being blunt. And one of my kids was like, you're kind of rude sometimes. I'm like, that's okay. Sometimes people pay me to say the things that other people are too nice to them to say. So mastering your subject, ask the people around you, and it can be scary because you're asking people to be honest with you, and sometimes how people perceive you might not match up with how you want to be perceived, and so there's a little bit of work to do there. But master your subject and momentum, like just keep going. And there's a story in my first book, The Accountability Code, called Broken Record. And guess what? My goal is for me to be the person who talks about accountability the most. Because guess what? If somebody else talks about accountability more than I do, then other people might be thinking of them when they hear the word accountability. And I don't want that to happen. So I've got to keep up the momentum to keep going. All right, tip 2, which is the letter A. This says attract and add value. Always add value, whether it's a post, course, or comment. Attract people through educational content that helps, informs, or inspires your audience. The more value you give, the more trust you build. This one is perfect. And if you guys have been in the Boss Minded Facebook group, you know that I am huge on teaching people how to add value. The reason why adding value is so important is because that's how relationships are built. Adding value is saying, hey, I have the solution for you, but I'm not going to shove it in your face. I'm just going to teach you more about it. I'm going to help shift your beliefs to help you see that my solution is actually the best thing you can do for yourself and your business. And attracting people comes naturally. When you're talking about your solution and how you can help people, and you educate on it and you share experiences, people are going to make their own decision about moving forward with you. And guess what? Those are the fastest converting clients and customers. They're the people who make up their own mind first about the solution. And I tell my clients this all the time. I've been on sales calls where people have agreed to pay me $5,000 and $10,000 the first time that we chat. And it's crazy because me, I'm like, that was not my goal, but my goal was this entire time to be a broken record about the solution of accountability, add value, and attract the right people. And for me, the right people are those people who are ready to take action. So it might seem a little scary to like draw the line in the sand and say, here's what I do and here's what I want to teach people. But guess what? Do not waste your time by being wishy-washy about your solution. Like, you have to fully own what you can do for people, because that's what people invest in. They invest in solutions that work and people that they can trust. So attract and add value. Now we're skipping down to R, which is repetition and relationships. This is perfect. Life teaches the same lessons over and over until you learn them. Build strong relationships through consistent value delivery. So here we are going down the same road, which tells you this is super important. But repetition, this is where you guys just have to keep showing up. And sometimes you might be adding value and people come at your content and they don't agree with it, or they challenge it, or they turn it into their own content as fuel for something they don't agree with, or they turn it into a talking point, or whatever it is. You just have to keep going, because it can be scary to continually put yourself out there, especially if you've been hurt or somebody has said or done something that didn't necessarily make you feel good, it takes a lot of courage to get up and show up anyway. Just yesterday, I was telling my sister that early on in my personal training business, I was telling everybody, I was adding value. I was telling everybody this super controversial piece of health advice. Are you ready for it? Somebody had a big problem with this. Here's what it was. Drink 64 ounces of water a day. Okay, that's what I was telling people. Man, the audacity I had to tell people to drink enough water. Somebody came at me and was like, you should not be telling people this. My mom had heart failure and the doctor said she was drinking too much water. You should not be telling this. And I was like, that's crazy. But guess what, guys? Sometimes I still think about that when I'm talking about drinking enough water. Like, there's a part of me that, you guys probably know this too. When you're about to make a post and you're like, I don't know if this is gonna blow up. I don't know if people are gonna have a problem with it. I don't know. But repetition is how you hone in on your message and you really practice what you're marketing. And relationships, the best thing about repetition in your message is that the right relationships are going to be built because there's an agreement on what you do. There's an agreement on your solution. And most importantly, there's an agreement on how you think the world should be. And when you agree with people and you find people who agree with your message, that's where sales come, that's where conversions come, and that's where the best relationships come too. All right, C, the fourth one. Connect and commit consistently, okay? Lots of C's there. Connect with people through commenting, chatting, and calling. Consistency over a long period is crucial for any progress. Choose clarity over cleverness in your communication. Now, connect and commit consistently. I really like this one, especially from an introverted standpoint. Connection is something that, this is a general statement, but introverts take more seriously than extroverts, because I can go to an event and meet 30 people and memorize their names and charm them all and get contact information, but my connections are just not going to be as deep from the beginning. It's going to take time to go deeper with each person. But introverted people might have the strength or skill to connect really deeply with a few people right away, and really that's what connecting is all about, is like an actual connection, not just surface level, hey, what's your name, what do you do? So committing consistently is really important. And again, this comes back to the repetition thing. Like, you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going. But I will say too that committing in your own business is something that takes practice, especially as an entrepreneur, because nobody's here clocking our hours. Nobody is here telling us like, oh, strike one, you might lose your job. Like, no, entrepreneurs, it's a constant battle of like, I want to fire you, but it's like, you can't fire me because I'm your only hope. Okay, so commit over and over and over again, and remember that connections is what's going to keep it together. All right, let's go to the last one. A scary thing to do in business: ignore negativity and iterate. Ignore negativity, or ignore negative energy and focus on finding your people. Iterate and improve constantly. Income follows impact. So focus on helping others solve meaningful problems. So very similar to the things that we've already talked about, but ignoring negativity, I will say, has to be a top priority. It absolutely has to be a top priority, because entrepreneurship is difficult. And there's only a few people who really understand it. And you might see a lot of people trying to be a business owner or trying to be an entrepreneur, but you really only got to listen to the ones who are successful. So don't assume that everybody is successful just because they're trying out the thing, but there's going to be people who are negative just because they haven't figured it out yet. Or there's people who don't believe you can do it, so they're going to have an attitude about why you should just give up. But I can tell you that in entrepreneurship, we have enough of a negative perspective on all of these things we're trying and failing. We don't need a whole team of negative people. Okay, so if there's people in your life that are not that encouraging about what you're doing, come back to the boundaries that you've set and say, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to try. I would love your support, not your competition. Like I already have this little person in my head who gives me doubts here and there. We don't need more. Okay, so ignore negativity and iterate. I like iterate on here because in my 10 years in business, there's so many things that I've changed. Even in my accountability accelerator, which is coming up very soon, is I have changed and tweaked things here and there, because why not? If I want things to be better, I listen to my clients, I listen to the outcomes of what's happened in the program, and I change things to make it more enjoyable and more successful for both me and my clients. So it can be scary to change things up, I will tell you that. Just recently, I was telling my hybrid coaching clients now how my mastermind has changed, because I used to sign people up for a whole year, and I decided a whole year is a very long time to work with somebody and a very long time to offer a loving kick in the pants. And sometimes people don't need it that much, and they hit results a lot sooner than they think, or they're just like, you know what, I didn't know that I wanted to do this for a whole year. So iterating and changing things up is so important, but it can be scary to venture into the unknown. But here in entrepreneur world, like, that's what we do all the time. So learn to embrace it because it will benefit you. But I think that's about it. I could be talking for a really long time, but I am excited for you guys to put in more topics that you want me to talk about. At the end of the day, whether you're introverted or extroverted, the ability and the desire to do something that scares you in your business is going to be a very great skill that's going to serve you really well. So I want you to know that as your loving kick in the pants, I'm going to be here to offer that to you, a nudge to keep going, but also in a loving way, because girl, I don't know, and men, if you're listening to this, like, you're doing a really great job just by pursuing what you care about. And accountability is the ability to follow through with desired expectations, and you pursuing education and what you care about and you trying to learn, that's you in the act of being accountable. So I'm proud of you for that. All right, we'll see you next week for another episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. Thanks for tuning in, friend. If this episode gave you value, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone in your circle who's ready to wake up, show up, and grow their business without sacrificing what matters most. When you do, you're not just helping them, you're building your network of like-minded leaders. And I'll say this plainly, leaving a kind review matters more than you know. It helps more people find the show, and it keeps the momentum going. So pause for a moment and please drop that review. Lastly, if there's a topic you want me to cover, I want to hear from you. Reach out, because this podcast is for you and I'm here to serve. Until next time, stay boss-minded.